what you say about the, and this is where the identification thing is so interesting. For gay men, Madonna was a drag queen, absolutely. But for me, she wasn't. She was something else. She wasn't woman as a subject, but there was this kind of way in which she afforded, and that's where I'm bringing up this threshold gendery idea that I like. She could kind of, I remember reading a short story about, it was actually kind of a end of the world apocalypse thing about a subject who could be everything for every viewer, and this being a kind of advertising at the end of the line, like what would it be to find that person? And I kind of thought Madonna was that person for a while. But the interesting thing about the effect that it had, and for I think a lot of people of our generation, gay or queer or however we want to talk about it, or straight even, there was a kind of intense identificatory thing that happened because it was not available elsewhere. But I saw on Ellen the other day, which I don't say I'm watching, but I happened to watch that day, that Madonna was on actually because it's so interesting. There's this pervasiveness with Lady Gaga, and there's this kind of Lindsay Lohan's girlfriend for a while, that queerness is this kind of open thing. And in fact, she was on because of the incredible amount of gay bashing that's happening in high schools all over the country, right? So, you know, there's this sort of question for me about what looks on the surface to be an abundance of kind of queer performance, and then what are actually really kind of conservative driving forces, at least in this country. So I'm not answering what your question would have been, but I do think that there's something we have to think about in terms of how a Madonna operated as a kind of cipher of alternative or subcultural practices that now can't operate in the same way. Even though I think Lady Gaga is really interesting in a sense in that way. It's just a different discussion, and maybe it goes back to, in a way, what Lane's asking about the subject of feminism. What's the subject of kind of rethinking the subject right now? And it's hard to find those theories. So Gender Trouble felt like it opened up a whole way of looking at kind of other ways of considering subject positions, and now it feels like it's anything goes but nothing goes too. Is that Martha? Oh, okay. I couldn't see it.
Yeah. Just one other thing too that I came to mind. Thurston Moore put together this. I can't remember what the name of that video is, but seeing that recently is all footage from that period.
Yeah.
And one of the ones that he has in there is Madonna when she was palling around with Sandra Bernhard and with them on David Letterman, which made me think of it when you were talking about with Ellen. And so she was also kind of in drag as the lesbian at the same time. So it's sort of like, I think that, you know, her sort of, you know, cultural capital at that moment is really sort of, I mean, it's completely undeniable. But
I have that memorized. They're talking about the cubby hole, which then I promptly visited as soon as I moved here. But yeah, no, this kind of performance on Letterman several times around kind of sexuality. There's also a great Saturday Night Live with Mike Myers. Did anyone? Where there's the fantastic Justify My Love scene that Mike Myers does, where he's trying to conjure Madonna and Justify My Love over and over. But it's also interesting that Madonna hasn't been allowed to age, which is a whole other topic. But I don't know. Does anyone care about I don't know, the objects I was talking about? And maybe I'm pushing things together in a weird way. The clock.